Welcome, dear listener, to a quiet journey into the heart of ancient legends and the gentle mysteries of the natural world. Tonight we'll settle into a story that begins in the whispers of time, a tale of creation of gods, and of a creature that seems to hold eternity within its very being. So find your most comfortable place, let your breath grow soft and steady, and allow your mind to drift as we explore the enchanting world of the axolotl. Our story unfolds in the rich tapestry of Aztec mythology, specifically within the legend of the Five Suns, a profound creation myth that describes the birth of our very world. It tells of the dawning of the fifth sun, an era that brought forth humanity, the very time in which we are living now. This fifth sun, born from the gods' divine will, held a remarkable power, yet it could not move across the vast expanse of the sky on its own. It required sustenance, a sacred nourishment, and so the gods themselves were the first to offer this ultimate sacrifice, setting a tradition that the Aztecs would later follow with deep reverence. Among these deities, there was one, the god Axolotl, who did not wish to partake in this ultimate offering. To evade his fate, he transformed, shifting his form like a whisper in the wind. First he became the maize plant, its green stalks swaying gently in the ancient breeze. Then he transformed into the agave plant, rooted deeply in the earth, resilient and silent. But still he was found. In his final attempt to escape, Axolotl plunged into the cool, dark waters, transforming into a water monster, the creature we know today as the Axolotl. His brother Quetzalcoatl discovered him there, and rather than forcing the sacrifice, he chose to spare Axolotl's life. But there was a condition. Axolotl was banished to live forever in the darkness, in the form of this unique water creature. Even today it is believed that the spirit of this ancient god still resides within the Axolotl, a silent guardian of timeless mysteries. As you listen, allow your thoughts to slow, much like the gentle currents of an ancient lake. The Axolotl, this fascinating creature, is a type of salamander found only in a very specific place, the area of Lake Xochimilco just outside Mexico City. This region, near the ancient Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan, is where these unique beings have thrived for centuries, deeply entwined with both myth and the natural landscape. Beyond its spiritual connections, the axolotl is unlike almost any other salamander in the world. It lives its entire life in water, a permanent aquatic resident, and even more remarkably, it never truly grows up. It remains in its juvenile form, a forever tadpole defying the usual march of time that most creatures follow. Imagine, if you will, a creature that seems to hold the secret to eternal youth, at least in its form. On top of its age-defying ability, the axolotl possesses an almost miraculous power. It can regenerate nearly any part of its body, from a lost limb or a tail, to internal organs, parts of an eye, and even portions of its brain. The axolotl simply regrows what it has lost. For hundreds of years, this extraordinary ability has made the axolotl central to our understanding of how our own bodies develop and function. Its unique physiology seems to hold the answers to many of our most profound biological questions, and scientists today hope to unlock the secrets of its regenerative superpowers, perhaps one day allowing us to harness them for our own benefit. But as with many delicate wonders of our world, time is pressing. The axolotl's natural habitat has dwindled to only a few hundred kilometers of waterways. This incredible creature, a living link to ancient myths and a key to future scientific breakthroughs, is now on the brink of vanishing from the wild. It leaves us to ponder what makes the axolotl so profoundly different from almost every other vertebrate. What exactly is it about its unusual biology that makes it such an important amphibian to science? Let's gently delve deeper into its unique characteristics. Axolotls are part of a group known as tiger salamanders, and they evolved relatively recently compared to other salamander species in their region. They typically grow to about 23 centimeters long and display a beautiful variety of colors. What truly sets them apart, as we've noted, is their neoteny. This means they retain their juvenile characteristics even into adulthood. They never undergo the typical metamorphosis that most amphibians experience, the transformation from an aquatic larval stage to a terrestrial adult. For the axolotl, this means remaining forever aquatic, never venturing onto land. They keep their delicate feathery external gills and their tail fins, and they lack movable eyelids, giving them a perpetually wide-eyed gaze. When the first axolotls were shipped from Mexico to the prominent French zoologist Auguste Dumeril in the 1860s, he was convinced they were simply the larvae of an unknown type of salamander. That is, until about 6 months later, when his specimens, quite unexpectedly, reproduced. Since the adult stage of an animal is defined by sexual maturity, these reproducing axolotls had to be adults, despite their perpetual larval appearance. Just how truly strange the axolotl was only beginning to be revealed to the scientific world. Retaining juvenile traits might seem like a cute but somewhat odd quirk of nature. At first glance, it appears as though an entire species has had its growth permanently stunted. Yet, while axolotls are one of the only salamanders to consistently stay in their juvenile form, other salamanders from the same region can sometimes be observed doing the same thing, with some individuals remaining in the water for their entire lives. Early naturalists were puzzled by this phenomenon, but by studying the environments where these salamanders lived, a clue began to emerge. The Mexican lakes where these creatures are found share a few key characteristics. Firstly, they were historically large, relatively permanent bodies of water, at least before significant human intervention. Secondly, these lakes are often surrounded by desert, and in many cases represent the only permanent body of water in the entire region. And thirdly, these lakes historically did not contain any large predatory fish. These unique conditions provided an ideal environment. Salamanders normally metamorphose to take advantage of both water and land, but only if the land is sufficiently damp. Staying in the water forever is a viable strategy only when there are no major predators lurking beneath the surface. With specific pH levels, temperatures, and altitudes, these Mexican lakes perfectly fit the bill, allowing the salamanders to thrive in a way that wouldn't be possible elsewhere. For a long time, it was believed that the axolotl always failed to undergo metamorphosis, that its neoteny was a permanent and unchangeable feature of its biology. And while this is true most of the time, it isn't true all of the time. French zoologist Dumeril received an even greater surprise in 1865. To his utter astonishment, some of the axolotls in his care spontaneously transformed into their adult, land-dwelling form. They resembled tiger salamanders, but were distinct enough to still be considered their own unique species. Dumeril spent the rest of his life searching for an explanation as to why these axolotls transformed, but passed away before he ever found the answer. However, in the early 1900s, the transformation of the axolotl once again captured the attention of researchers. During this period, scientists were focusing on the thyroid gland and its role in amphibian metamorphosis. The axolotl became the perfect animal to clearly demonstrate its effects. When axolotls were fed thyroid tissue from livestock, they would indeed metamorphose. They would lose their external gills, shed their larval skin, and begin to venture onto land. In essence, thyroid tissue acted like a real-life moonstone for the axolotl, triggering a profound change. In other instances, axolotls can also transform when forced to breathe air, though this is a stressful process for the animal and takes much longer. This may explain why some captive axolotls have unexpectedly metamorphosed. The discovery of transforming axolotls played a central role in our journey to understanding thyroid hormones, such as thyroxine, which was first isolated in 1915 and synthesized in 1926. This marked the beginning of the axolotl's immense contribution to medical research, a contribution that continues to this very day. As you feel the gentle pull of sleep, let's turn our attention to the axolotl's most astonishing power: regeneration. All organisms possess some level of regenerative abilities. For certain animals like flatworms and hydras, regeneration is an intrinsic part of life. They can regrow their entire bodies even from a tiny fragment. Starfish, octopuses, and even crabs can lose an arm and simply grow it back without much difficulty. But these animals all share a common characteristic: they are invertebrates. Invertebrates, like ourselves, regeneration is mostly limited to regrowing skin or scar tissue over a wound. With the exception of our liver, we cannot regrow our organs, nor our limbs. In fact, almost no vertebrate can regenerate much beyond what we can, except for the axolotl and other members of the salamander order. The only other vertebrates that can regrow limbs are frogs, but even they lose this ability once they fully mature into their adult form. The axolotl, however, retains its remarkable regenerative abilities throughout its entire life. The way an axolotl regrows a limb is a marvel of nature. It begins with the surviving cells of the lost limb. Once a limb has been severed, a blood clot quickly stops the bleeding, much like in humans, and a layer of cells covers the amputation site. This initial healing process isn't so different from our own. But then, over the next few days, the cells beneath the epidermis begin to rapidly divide, forming a cone-shaped structure known as a blastema, sometimes called a regeneration bud. The blastema holds the key to this incredible process. It's here that regular bone, cartilage, or muscle cells de-differentiate, meaning they lose their original identity and transform back into a more primitive state, akin to stem cells. Slowly these cells begin reforming bone, skin, and veins, much as stem cells would do when the animal is first developing within its egg. As the cells in the blastema continue to divide, nerves and blood vessels connect it to the rest of the body, and the limb eventually grows back completely, an exact replica of the limb that was lost. And while total limb regeneration is impressive enough, axolotls are also capable of something that seems almost impossible: regrowing parts of their brain. In mammals like us, and in most vertebrates, neurons typically only grow during the embryonic stage. Any new neuron formation in adulthood is quite limited. If the brain is damaged in adulthood, it usually cannot regenerate new neurons, blood vessels, or tissue. Yet for the axolotls, this is no problem. By de-differentiating stem cells, they can add new neurons throughout their lives, and can regenerate the spinal cord and parts of the brain after an injury. Salamanders are the only four-legged vertebrates known to transform regular cells back into stem cells, allowing them to redevelop into new tissue. This might seem like a unique superpower, but the axolotl doesn't actually possess special regeneration genes that other animals lack. Instead, they are simply regulating their genes differently from other creatures. This simple fact gives scientists immense hope. Perhaps we too have this ability still locked within us, an ancient potential waiting to be reawakened. If unlocked, such an ability could profoundly benefit people suffering from organ failures, limb amputations, or severe burns. While we still don't fully understand the exact mechanisms that allow the axolotl to de-differentiate cells, some key components are slowly being unveiled, and many of them resemble the cells and molecules already at work in our own bodies. One way scientists learn about the molecules and cells necessary for axolotl regeneration is by looking for subtle molecular changes that cause them to lose their regenerative ability. For instance, macrophages, a type of immune cell, are known to be critical during inflammation in response to an injury in many animals and have been previously linked to regeneration. Researchers found that injecting a drug that eliminates macrophages in an axolotl's limb before amputation causes it to form scar tissue instead of regenerating. This shows that macrophages, cells we readily possess, are an important component for regeneration. Similarly, researchers discovered that a protein called transforming growth factor beta is key in axolotl regeneration, a molecule that is also essential in preventing scar tissue in injured human embryos during the first trimester. On top of this, scientists have also found that both mice and humans can partially regenerate a severed finger or toe, though humans tend to lose this ability as they grow older. Researchers believe this is due to a specific type of stem cell that lies beneath the fingernail, which normally helps fingernails to perpetually grow. They now think these cells could be a remnant from a time when our regenerative abilities were stronger. The regrowth of mouse digits studied depends on two specific types of proteins called Wnt and FGFF2, and certain signaling pathways, proteins and pathways that appear to be the same as those found in salamanders during regeneration. All of this suggests that we may partially retain the same regenerative abilities as the axolotl, abilities that could one day be reawakened within us. For all these reasons, the axolotl remains one of the most incredible and vital research animals in science, alongside becoming a beloved pet in freshwater aquariums around the world. And yet, despite its scientific significance and cultural importance, the axolotl faces almost complete annihilation in the wild. The conservation story of the axolotl is a unique one, and if we are not careful, we risk losing one of the most incredible creatures on Earth. The wild axolotl is teetering on the brink of extinction. Its population has declined exponentially in recent decades. A survey in 1998 reported around 6,000 individuals per square kilometer in their habitat. By 2015, only 35 individuals were found per square kilometer. While they were predicted to go extinct in the wild by 2020, they have just barely escaped this fate for now. No one knows exactly how many are left, but the numbers are dire. Today, the axolotl is found naturally in only one place, Lake Xochimilco. However, the modern version of this lake is more like a series of small canals, a phantom of its former self, representing only about 2% of the original massive wetland system. Centuries ago, this area contained several Great Lakes, which were home to many Mesoamerican cultures, including the Teotihuacanos, the Toltecs, and later the Aztecs. At the time of the Spanish conquest in 1519, these lakes would have covered much of what is now modern-day Mexico City. Due to its naturally shallow waters and freshwater springs in the south, Lake Xochimilco became the center of what was called Chinampa agriculture. In the centuries before the Spanish arrived, these artificial islands created an extensive network of canals. The ancient cities here, in a way, looked a lot like the Venice of today. Here, the axolotl thrived alongside humans. But over time, the population of the area grew and grew, and eventually most of the lakes were drained, with the exception of Lake Xochimilco, to prevent flooding and to allow for urban expansion. What remains of Lake Xochimilco today is unfortunately highly polluted, full of dangerous algae blooms and invasive large fish, which both outcompete and prey upon the axolotls. It's no surprise that the wild axolotl population is almost gone from its ancestral home. And yet, in laboratories around the world, the axolotl is abundant. They have even been affectionately called the white mice of amphibians, because they are ideal for research and are relatively easy to rear in the lab. They are in fact the most widely distributed amphibian in the world. So you might wonder, if the axolotl is thriving in aquariums and labs, what exactly is the issue? Unfortunately, these lab colonies are not staying entirely healthy. These captive populations are becoming inbred, lacking the genetic diversity that helps ward off disease. To help mitigate this, scientists have crossbred captive axolotls with a similar species, the tiger salamander. But this has resulted in many lab specimens having a host of foreign genes, meaning they aren't quite the same as wild axolotls anymore. One proposed solution to the decline of wild axolotls is to simply reintroduce some of the captive population back into their natural habitat. However, until the lake is cleaned up, putting them back would be a death sentence. Despite the efforts of some dedicated scientists and conservationists, Lake Xochimilco becoming clean and healthy anytime soon seems unlikely. Instead of reintroducing them into their original habitat, some scientists have a different idea to give the axolotls a new home. One suitable site has been identified near Mexico's National Autonomous University. A freshwater lake has been born out of an abandoned quarry, and researchers are now using it as an ecological research site. Dozens of axolotls have been released here and are tracked using tiny radio transmitters. Eventually, these research subjects are expected to breed here, and a new type of semi-wild population may be born. Perhaps with the introduction of wild-caught axolotls along with the lab-reared ones, genetic diversity could improve. And even though it's a different ecosystem than the swampy canals where they evolved, places like this may offer the best option for the long-term survival of these magnificent creatures. Mexico as a country is one of the most biodiverse nations in the world. It stands alongside Brazil, Colombia, and Indonesia at the very top of the biodiversity list, boasting thousands of unique endemic species. It's estimated that more than 10% of all the world's species live in Mexico, classifying it as a megadiverse country. The axolotl is far from the only notable native species that Mexico has to offer. The Mexican prairie dog, burrowing owls, the Mexican wolf, the rarest subspecies of wolf in North America, and the American bison, the largest land animal in the Americas, are all amazing creatures that inhabit the grasslands of Mexico. Grasslands, an ecosystem that might be easy to overlook, are in fact teeming with biodiversity. The number of different types of grasses found there is comparable to the number of different types of trees in a tropical rainforest. As we conclude our quiet journey, reflecting on the axolotl's mythical past and its extraordinary present, remember that the natural world holds countless wonders, often in the most unexpected places. Let the gentle story of this ancient water god, this enduring symbol of regeneration and resilience, lull you into a deep and tranquil rest. Allow your body to feel heavy, your mind to clear, and drift away into a peaceful, restorative sleep. Good night.